Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Bolt Action Basics. Today we're going to be kind of diving into some more exciting realms. So, we've got a couple of figures here. Let me just quickly show you them. Hopefully we're going to get some figures looking as good as these guys. So, we'll go through basically the basics of painting. I won't do assembly of figures today. We'll do that in another video, and we'll do that pretty soon so that you guys get an idea of how you go about doing that. But let's just go for the paint today. So let's head over to the painting table. Okay guys, so a few things that we need before we get started. Ideally we need some sort of pot with some water in. That's always useful. Having some sort of palette to mix paints if needs be is also useful. Apologise for any of the light or the background mess that is my man cave. Unfortunately, we don't all get brilliant studios, but we carry on anyway. Some other things you need: paintbrushes. Generally, we're not talking about the big ones that you get from Homebase or wherever, you know, the inch wide ones and such forth. These are pretty fine stuff. This one's an army painter. It's just catching the light there. There you go. There's some army painter. A particularly good brand is the Winsor & Newton. They are a little bit expensive, but they are very nice all the same. And basically you just need some sizes that you feel comfortable with painting with. I do want to just add at this point a disclaimer. I am not an expert painter. I don't even consider myself very good, but what I am is an average wargamer who paints figures, and so hopefully you can kind of, as perhaps newbies to bolt action and wargaming, hopefully you can get an idea that it's not as hard as it might look. Some other things that we need obviously is paints. Now I use two different types of paints. I use Citadel paints for specific colours. Should have had that closed last time I used it. And I use Vallejo paints. I believe they're both acrylic based, which means if you get them on your clothes you can wash them out, so don't panic too much. Generally for Vallejo we use model colour. But there are various other types of Vallejo paints out there that are also useful. I do have this one. This one is packaged up as a Flames of War paint. It says English uniform. It's just a Vallejo paint with Flames of War sticker on. And English uniform, and the number is the correct Vallejo one. And we will be using that obviously because we're going to be painting some British. So that's really the basics. Oh, and it's also good to have something to dry your brush out on, so maybe some kitchen roll or something like that. I always find that helpful. One of the other things I'm going to be using as well is some ink washes. Again, I use Citadel ones, but Vallejo do some, I think, and some other companies such as Army Painter. But I quite like the Citadel ones, and for the time being, until I run out of these are what I'm going to be using. So that is kind of the basic things that you need. You don't really need a lot more than that. Some people use magnifying glasses. I don't. I've got good vision at the moment, but who knows, after a few more armies it might get worse. So what process do I go through when I'm preparing my minis? Well, first of all, I stick my figure onto the base, and in this instance it's the 2p coin. Okay, who today I think, well, obviously I'm filming this much earlier than will be released, but Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth is now the longest reigning monarch, so there you go, and she's got a Frenchman stood on her. But anyway, that's what life is. So that's the first stage. Now the second stage is that I use some blue tack, and I haven't got a spare one at the moment, but what I do, and let's take one of the Japanese, is I get something like some sort of container for, you know, spices and stuff, and I just stick them on top, and that way it allows me to get a better grip on it when I'm painting. Other things other pots that are quite useful, old pill bottles, they're quite useful as well. Anything really that you can get your hand around and you can stick that on. The next stage then is very simple. I spray the figures in a base coat, in a primer coat. Now often there are various different paints out there. I actually just use an El Cheapo one from Walmart. It's $1, but it lasts forever. Some people would say that's probably not the best thing to do. I haven't found a huge amount of issues with it. It works fairly well. Some people will use black. I like black because if you miss a bit, then the black comes through and you creates a shadow, which gives it a depth. Some people will use white, and some people will also use grey. So there's a variety of different ones that you can use there. So once I've sprayed the figure black, and let's give you an example. Here's a German I sprayed. Where we go? There we go. And is he going to focus? Oh, he's maybe not going to focus today. Maybe he's too busy loading his pack 40. But I spray in black. There you go. The next thing that I do is I paint. I mix a red and a purple together to get a kind of a reddy purplish. Surprising, I know. And I paint all the flesh that colour. And so we're going to do that now, and then I can show you what that looks like. So let's have a look at Okay guys, so that was my very fast speed painting. In fact, almost quicker than the legendary Andy Singleton. Now I will just say that everything or a lot of what I've learned from Andy, and I really appreciate his sort of mentorship, and I really feel that my figures have come on a lot because of the help and suggestions he's given me, and a lot of the colours I use are from his suggestions. One thing that I do, I've got a terrible memory, but one of the things I do is I get some index cards and I write down for each of the units what colours to use. And this is something that I can post on the Facebook page, Tease Foam and Terrain and all that, if you're interested. So let's have a quick look. Let's take a look at the machine gunner here. Let's see if it'll focus there. Give it a second. But basically you can see that I've painted all the flesh that reddy purpley colour. Okay, and the reason for that is because that goes into all the crevices and such. And then I'm going to basically build up from there, leaving certain areas like the mouth, the edge of the nose, the eye sockets and the ears with that darker colour, and then build up lighter tones from there. And that will give it the impression of depth and different tones within the skin. So that's the next job I'm going to do, is basically build up the flesh until I have something that looks like this. Let's see if he'll focus. We're getting there. We're not quite getting there. Okay, well, let's get on to the next bit of painting. Guys, so that's taken me about 20 or 30 minutes to do the flesh on the 7 figures. They're not going to be able to see it all that well, Hopefully it'll focus in, maybe not. No, don't think it's going to. But basically what I did was I, on top of the purpley red mix, I used a Citadel Dwarf flesh colour to do most of the flesh. I left a little bit of gaps in the eye sockets, in the ear hole, in the inner ear, and kind of on the side of the noses, where your kind of cheek is, between your cheek and your nose. And I left those bits, and also a little bit under the collar as well, just to kind of give a darkness to it. Then what I did was mixed the dwarf flesh with some bleached bone. I'm really sorry about the light being so bright here. Mixed a bit of bleached bone in there to lighten it up, and then did more of the higher areas of the face, so that the chin, the cheeks, the forehead, the bridge of the nose, and again the edges of the ears, and then and I also do the hands, particularly the palms and the fingers, leaving some darker colour in between the fingers. And then I just used a straight bleach bone just to really fine highlights. Again, bridge of the nose, chin, really high points of the cheeks, kind of in around the nose and eye area, and then the edge of the ears and the knuckles. So that's the flesh. That's pretty much all I'm going to do for tonight, and I'll probably pick it up hopefully tomorrow, and we'll get on to doing the uniforms, and we'll see you then. So for now, I'm going to say good night, and I'm sure we'll pick it up tomorrow. Okay guys, so it's Sunday now. Had some busy days, so I haven't had much chance to do any further work on these figures. Need to get them done really by this evening, so I can film my review for this week, my update. So I'm gonna get the uniform done next, and that's what I'm just gonna crack on with it. So I'm gonna be using, if I can find the correct paint, some English uniform, which I had out actually the other day. Here it is, English uniform, Vallejo color 921, just English uniform, and I will put that over. Only thing I really need to avoid is the flesh, so I don't get it on there, but apart from that, I'll get all that done and then come back to you and tell you the next bit. So let's get on with some painting. Okay guys, so I painted all my uniforms, that British or that English uniform, good coating all over. I've actually snuck in another figure that I already had prepped, that isn't part of my pledge for this week, but he will get painted up, as I had plenty of paint, and I'd already done his flesh. Just on the subject of paint, you can just see here, put out rather a lot of English uniform, and I've got a lot of wastage now. Excuse me. With the pots, it's easy not to waste, but if you are using Vallejo, I suggest maybe 1 or 2 little tiny drops out of these, and then, you know, if it comes to the point where you need more, you can just put out another little drop, use that, and keep going that way, and that saves on wastage. These aren't too bad in terms of price, and they do last a long time. It is important to give them a good shake first, to mix in the various elements within the paint. But yeah, if you want to save on wastage, I would suggest 1 or 2 drops, unlike me, who did something like 3 or 4 big squirts or something. I mean, I clearly wasn't concentrating. I'm going to move on and actually do a couple of steps in this next video before finishing up with the webbing, the helmets and the weapons, and the equipment. I just wanted to say as a point of kind of help, that if you have your colours written out on a sheet, it's really useful because it helps you, I find, to think about, right, what should I paint next. So for example, I'm going to paint next the boots. They're black, so it'll be very quick, but once I put the boots on, I can then do the gaiters later on without having to worry about getting black on the gaiters when I come around to doing the boots, because I will have already done them. And this is important because you often want to start as, you know, almost dress the body. So, you know, flesh is first because he'd be naked, then you put his uniform on, then he's probably going to put his boots, and then he can put his webbing on after that, and then pick up his rifle and then put his helmet on. And that's how I like to think of these figures, and that's how I like to work with them. And it saves or it reduces the opportunity that you might have of getting paint on an area that you don't particularly want. So I'm going to do the boots next, and I'm also going to do the water bottle. The reason for that is that there is strapping over the water bottle, and when I come to do the webbing, I want to be able to do that over the top of the colour rather than having to come back to the colour. So that's my plan. So I'm going to go ahead now and do the boots and the water bottle, the water bottles on them, and then I will come back to you, have a quick little chat while I let them dry a little bit. They really don't take very long, especially if you work from one model on a kind of a production line. By the time you've done the last one, I've got 8 here, and by the time I'd finished the 8th one, the first one was dry again, allowing me to start the next stage. So they do dry pretty quickly. So let's crack on with some more painting. Okay guys, so I've done the boots, I painted the water bottles. I should probably say, if I haven't already, I used Citadel's just black for the boots. Again, you can pretty much use any sort of black. And I used the brown violet from Vallejo, which is number 887, for the water bottles. My next step then is the webbing, and I particularly like the webbing because I find that the characters really start to come to life when you start to put the webbing on. The main thing after that really is then just the small little details. So for the webbing, I'm going to use 886 green grey from Vallejo paints. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with this, and then we'll see you in a minute or two. Hey guys, so back to the painting table. I've been off, done some washing and laundry. I've done that. I've done my master's homework, and I've had dinner as well. So now back to the table. I've now got just the details left. As I said earlier, how the character, once you've done the webbing, the character starts to come up, and I don't know whether you can start to. If you can see that at all, it's not great. It's not great. I apologise for the lighting and all that, but you can see he's starting to look like a character now. So the next thing is the details. Very quickly, I'm going to run through this. For the helmets, I'm going to use a chocolate brown, which is number 872 in Vallejo. for the gas mask case, which is the one that often was on the front of their chest, I'm going to use khaki, which is number 988. And for their gas capes, I'm going to use the Flat Earth, which is number 983. I've actually only got 3 with gas capes, and they tend to be tucked under their satchels on the back. If I just show you this chap, I don't know whether that's going to focus or not, but if you can just see his backpack, and then at the top here, he's got his gas cape. I've only got 3 with them in this sort of section of figures to be painted, and one's done, so I'll do those. They won't take long. I'll probably do the helmets second, because the straps on their helmets I'm going to do in khaki, which I'll then I'll use the khaki for their gas mask cases. Once I've done that, then it'll be just the weapons left to do, and some of them have got ammo cases and stuff. Weapons, I tend to use a Bastille Brown, I think it's called. It's let me see if I've got it here. It's a GW paint. Sorry, a Citadel paint. Yeah, Bastille Brown. Okay, I use that for the woodwork. You can use the Flat Earth or any sort of brown, which works. And then I use my if I've got it here. Yep, bolt gun metal. For any of the metal parts, and for my ammo loader, who's got a chain chain link ammunition, I use a burnished gold to do that for the detailing. The ammo cases, I'll probably use some sort of military green. For this, anything really will work. Any sort of green. Shades tended to vary. Obviously, I've got a military green here, which is 975. Might be a bit bright. I might go for something like German cam dark green, which is 979. For some things, I very much go to Andy Singleton and ask, but a lot, he's tried to get me to experiment as well, and just look at a colour and make up my mind whether I think that's right. Maybe try it and maybe go back and change it up later on. If I don't like it. So it is a little bit of experimentation, and as you go through, you'll get better and better at it. Picking up books with various pictures that are painted is always good. I use either the Bolt Action books or I use the Osprey military books. They are very good for giving you ideas of colours. But remember, at the end of the day, a lot of uniforms, manufactured from different companies and different plants, using slightly different sort of, wools each time for the uniforms and stuff like that, or different canvases, and that makes a difference to what the colour looks like. So you can't go far wrong really painting these. And at the end of the day, as I say, it is your army. Okay. So I'm going to crack on and get these details painted. I did have to mention that one of my chaps, one of my spotters, has actually got a cup attached to his backpack. I'm going to be painting that in just a white, and I'll be using probably my there you go, white Scar. That's a Citadel paint. Okay. So I'm going to crack on, and I will speak to you in a bit. Okay guys, I'm just gonna finish up the last little details and do the bases. So weapons primarily will be bolt gun metal, and also throw in some burnished gold for the chain link, and then I'm going to use some German cam dark green, which is number 979 in the Vallejo series, for ammo tins, and little bits of equipment like that. Bayonets are going to be black. I'm just going to go back and touch over those, and then I'll be doing the bases with a brown paint, just a standard paint that I would get at a shop. I actually use the nutmeg brown, which is an apple barrel paint. If you're in the States, you can buy these at Walmart for 50 cents, okay, for one of these tubs, which is great. I'm just going to use that brown to coat over it, and then I will dry brush it with a lighter brown, and then flock it to finish up with. So, but I'm not going to do the basing today on this video. I'm going to do basing on a different video. We'll look at some different types of bases, like sand bases and grass bases, and maybe snowy bases, maybe some jungle bases using some herbs to make some sort of jungle scatter. So we'll do that in a separate video, but for today I'm just going to finish these up. So let's crack on. Guys, so I finished painting all the base colors of all my figures here. What I wanted to just very quickly talk to you about was actually a cool little trick that I learned for things like binoculars or glasses. So rather than painting them some sort of blue color, what we can do is, for example, on these binoculars here, I've used the bolt gun. Was it bolt gun? Yeah, bolt gun metal colour on the binoculars. And what I'm going to do, and I'll just do this in real time, is I'm going to take a little bit of white, and I'm just going to really small amount, because all I want to do is just do a small little white dot where the glass is on both sides. And hopefully it's going to turn out well, because I'm doing it live-ish. Okay, so I don't know whether you can see that now, but we've got two white dots. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to take a little bit of an ink. Now inks are great because they really can make a sort of a fairly average figure look very good. So if I just give this one for example, the colours are pretty flat. There's not a whole lot of depth to the figure other than what I've been able to do with the paint effects, but by adding some ink washes on top, I'm going to be able to produce a deeper character. So I'm using the Citadel ones, and I'm going to use this Drakenhof Nightshade, which is basically a blue ink. Okay, and I'm going to put that on those bits of white on the guy's binoculars in just a moment once that's dried. While that's drying, I'll quickly tell you what I tend to do for the figures. Oh, I found one that I've missed a bit of paint on there. I'll have to go back and do him in just a second. But basically what I do is I use a sepia for the flesh. I use and possibly the webbing. I use Agrax Earthshade, which is like a brown wash for all the uniform and the helmets, and any of the wood on the weapons. And I use Nuln oil, which is basically a black, on anything that's black, and all the metal parts of the weapon systems. So that's how I do my inking. I'll do that now, and then I'll hopefully show you the end product once it's dry. Okay, that's cool. Okay guys, so I finished inking the figures, and just to, I mean they take a little bit longer than the Vallejo paints to dry, but I don't know whether you can see already they're starting to look a little bit grimy, a little bit dirtier, a little bit more with more depth to them. Basically what happens is the ink seeps into all the crevices and the kind of deep spots in the casting in the figure, and really picks out and really gives some depth to the uniform, and just tones all the colors down, makes it that little bit darker and grimier. And that really can make a difference between perhaps good painting and excellent painting. I have found, since I've been using inks after I've done the painting, that my painting has come along in leaps and bounds. My figures are looking much better than when I first started. For example, if I show you this this British para that I did when I first started, it's quite bright. In fact, the colours are actually too green. Okay, but generally speaking, not a great job. Very much bold colours. And if you compare them to some of my more recent figures where I've used the inks, they certainly look a lot better and with much more character. So the next thing to do then is to let the inks dry a little bit, and then to come along with some of my brown paint that I mentioned a little bit earlier, nutmeg brown, okay, from the Apple Barrel series, and just to go over and paint the bases. I generally use 2 coats. I put a thin coat on to start with, and then I come back with another coat just to thicken it up, and then I will be highlighting. But for this tutorial, that's pretty much it. We've got to the stage where we have our figures painted, and if you want to know more about basing, check out future episodes where we'll be looking specifically at basing. That will include both texturing and flocking. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and please like, comment and subscribe, and catch us again in another Bolt Action Basics. Okay, take care.